Sales Wisdom Pod with Benjamin Bressington. He is CEO and founder at Behavior Sales. We're going to talk about sales today. Obviously, we're going to talk about nomad life, which Ben is on right now, and authorship, speakership, if that's even a word, and cycling. Me and Ben share a lot of overlaps there. So Ben, introduce yourself. Tell us a bit more about yourself and your company.
Yeah, so Ben Bressington, I'm the CEO of Behavior Sales, and we've created the Ask Alex AI product. I spend my time traveling around the US right now, or I'm just starting on this adventure. Avid mountain biker, was a road cyclist, but now I'm more passionate about road mountain biking. So yeah, I wanted to go tour some of the best bike parks in the US, and then I was just like, well, why am I putting this stuff off? Like, why do I work so hard? Why am I putting this stuff off? Why can't I make it work now? And that all comes down to exactly what we do for businesses is literally we help people get out of the GSD mode, the get shit done mode, and we help them automate the tasks that they're doing in their business to scale. A lot of people use people to scale, but people don't scale. Systems scale and people use systems. And with the advancement of our AI, we can actually pretty much clone whatever a human does at a computer with AI. And that's what we provide our clients with, an AI that literally automates the boring stuff, we call it, so they can focus on higher value tasks. And for me, I automate as much as I can in my business so I can literally be out all day in mountain bike parks, traveling around the country and enjoying life. And that's all part of the fun.
And why do people not automate that much of their business? Is it because it's lots of energy to dig for the software and actually do the implementation?
Well, I think it's because people don't know how. And I think there's this get shit done, that GSD myth, right? Or the side hustle myth, right? They think that you've got to do it. And in GSD mode, you're in the mode of getting stuff done and getting it done in the moment for some bigger off payday that usually never comes. And I call that the time tax. So it takes a little bit of time to automate something now, but I'm not paying the time tax next week or next time I have to do the task. So it's kind of the opposite of what everyone from the gurus is preaching from stage. They're preaching get shit done, right? You get shit done, that's how you get 10x. Well, if I get shit done by automating, it means I don't have to be doing that task anymore. And this is one of the big reasons why people don't even outsource to a virtual assistant. Oh, it's too much work to set up a virtual assistant. Yes, that's that time tax you pay now. But once that virtual assistant is trained, you're free. And now we've taken it one step further with AI. If you can record your screen, we can automate what you do and then deploy a robot on your computer or in the cloud to literally do that task 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just imagine that scale. It takes you 15 minutes to record your screen, you doing that task, right? We automate it within a few days. And then literally you can click a button or have it triggered to run every 15 minutes, for example, and literally do that task without fail, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The freedom that creates is immense. And I think people just don't think, one, I believe long-term enough, or two, we're getting trained in a methodology that's like short-term hustle and not really long-term scale.
Love it. I mean, that's game-changing right there. Why are not more startups doing that? Because I've seen Rewind.ai, that was Dan Siroker, ex-CEO of Optimizely. His plan is just to film your screen and have a memory for your whole life. I guess his master plan, though, is to take all of that data and to eventually have a bot record everything you do on your screen and have an AI assistant that would automate pretty much everything that you do. Why aren't more folks doing that?
Well, a lot of people, first of all, don't have access to the technology. The technology still in this current age costs about $250,000 a year just for the software license. Then you got to set up the team to be able to use the software. So there's another half $500,000 a year just to use the software. So for a startup or a small business, you're $500,000 to $750,000 in the hole, right? And then there's a lot of automation tools out there, Zapier, Make, all this type of stuff that are browser based. What I'm talking about is full desktop. It doesn't require you to change systems. Like, I don't want you to change CRM systems. I don't want to change you to change what you're doing. I literally just want to be able to be the duct tape that glues it all together. And that's what our the AI software can do. And the process has been around for years, called robotic process automation. And it's usually been a ticket for companies that are willing to invest $1 million in software. Now we make it possible for people to do for $500 and literally scale their workforce. So that's the big opportunity here, is that we provide it rather than charging ridiculous licensing fees. We provide it like bots as a service, for example. So removing all that complexity. So that's what, in my mind, one of the biggest hurdles that people have had is, and along with not even knowing this stuff exists. No one's sitting there teaching, well, it's just 4-hour week was hire, outsource. He never said automate. He said outsource. So people run with that vague understanding of what outsource means and then outsource it to people in the Philippines or in India or Pakistan or wherever it is. So totally different mindset.
Is UiPath into this? Like, do they have a roadmap for actually filming your screen, having an AI understand what you do, and then automate it?
So one of the things we do is we've actually got another piece of software we use that we can literally record our clients' desktops for them. Because a lot of them are like, oh, we don't know what tasks to automate. Well, they're like, hey, let us just record your screen for a week or for a month. And then we can show them, hey, like there's 20 different things we can automate just from one employee, let alone the other employees on the table, right? So we're trying to make it easy. And then our team assess the tasks and the workflows, and that's what we do. So some people get it and they go, oh yeah, I can just automate this, be it an invoicing task. There's one example I can give, which is literally a hospital had 2 full-time employees sending doctor referral letters. Not anything fancy. Like when you go to see a doctor, you get a referral to go see another doctor, right? Not complicated. Wasn't a profit center for that business, but it was an expense, right? They had 2 full-time people. On average, they said, on average, it took 10 minutes per letter. The reality is it could take up to 48 minutes per letter because depending on how the ladies were feeling, who they argued with, if they were pissed off with their kids, if they were running in late, whatever it is, right? So when we looked at the numbers, it didn't really make sense from an output level. And the other thing is they thought it was so complicated that the only way to automate it was with humans because they had to copy data from 4 different software systems. So we recorded the process and literally within 2 days, we had it fully automated. And now those letters are getting generated every 60 seconds. And every 60 seconds, that letter is actually getting sent to the on-demand print house. So it's literally getting printed and mailed every 15 minutes. So now they're doing hundreds of letters per day without fail. And now those 2 employees were then freed up. So like that's $68,000 per year to employees, right? Is what they're getting paid to do this role. They've been freed up to be allocated to higher value tasks within that business. So the cost savings alone is significant. Like that's just the tip of the iceberg of what's possible.
Yeah, that's quite impressive. So I pay you $500. You send me the software, it records my screen, and then I'm like, well, the software will mention what is repetitive here. It will, let's say, distinguish 5 activities, and then you will give me the same software back to actually implement these tasks, or how does it go precisely?
Yeah, so we have a subscription, obviously, that people are paying us for, and then they install that, and literally the bots operate on their machine. So you're 100% right. We record them your machine. We go, hey, there's 3 things you did today that we could automate, which are obviously taking you 20% of your time, and you're actually doing it multiple days, right? So we can assess that and help you analyze what's going on. Our team will then push what we call bots to your system, and what's really, really cool is we can push 2 types of bots. We can actually push AI bots, which we call an assistant mode or a helper mode. So let's say you're doing a 5-step task, right? What the bot could do is the bot could actually load the website, pre-fill some of the variables, and get it ready for you to hit approve and submit, for example. So that the bot could do steps 1, 2, and 3, and you just do step 4 and 5. So we've saved you maybe 7 minutes on that one task because it's done the data entry part for you. So that's what we call helper mode. The other mode is autonomous mode, which is literally, it just does the task based on a trigger. The trigger could be an email, the trigger could be a Zapier webhook, or it could be something happening in your system, or maybe it's something you want to run every 15 minutes. So we deploy those, and based on the number of bots you want to deploy, it just depends on your subscription. but we can literally set you up with a virtual army of robots. And we've got a level where it's literally unlimited robot employees that you can be running in the cloud, which is really exciting.
Right. Give us an example. For example, automating Apollo contact adding for my prospection, or starting this new campaign in my Apollo, responding automatically to some emails. Give me some examples of time that you're saving in your own business.
Yeah, well, in my security company, so we had security analysts that were literally analyzing emails, right? So one of the things we do is email security, and we analyze email threats for clients, which meant I had a security operations team. It was taking 14 hours per day of work, literally looking at email headers and completing a 6-step analysis of, is this email a threat? What's the threat in this email? And as they went down the list. So I'm like, man, if we automate this, I literally saved myself 14 hours. So we literally automated it within about 24 hours. And then I now, once again, freed up 14 hours of human time per day. It blew my mind, the impact of automating this one task. Because and I was literally thinking I was having to run 24-hour-a-day shifts. So like 3 8-hour shifts for employees. So that was like multiple teams. And like, it was like, there was a huge management of getting this to scale to have it run 24 hours a day. Now I literally don't have to worry about that because this scales in an unlimited manner. That's one use case. We're using it to actually generate proposals and dashboard reports for clients on their progress and their activity every single month. So that's also another thing. So there's a huge opportunity there, which saves me about 10 hours a month from one of my virtual assistants who are doing this task previously. You're just copying data from one dashboard and loading it into a report template, and then exporting it as a PDF. And it was about 10 hours of collective work for that one assistant. So you go, okay, well, that's not much. I'm like, no, it's $60 a month. It's not that much, but now I eradicated that expense. So now, like, on top of that, and on top of the 14 hours a day savings, like, it just scales and grows and grows.
Love it. What about like sales to generate more cash, or cash on autopilot? How far are we from this?
Yeah, there's a huge opportunity with that. And I'm literally working with different companies at every stage of this, from client onboarding to lead generation. I'm doing a lot of automation for people who do LinkedIn outreach, literally being able to find, they give me a keyword and we literally are going to Sales Navigator. We're doing the search, we're pulling the leads, we're verifying the leads, we're extracting all that data to put it into a spreadsheet for them to then trigger into their cold email system, trigger a connection campaign, all that type of stuff. Even creating the personalization through ChatGTP of like personalizing the outreach message that's getting sent to this person. Like, all of that's literally getting custom done. So therefore you could almost automate your outreach. I don't know, one of the things we initially spoke about as well, what about automating the podcast reach out, or the podcast connections? Because that's just a tedious task of going to one of the services and reaching out to somebody and sending them a contact email, which is your standard pitch deck. It's, here's my pitch, here's who I am. Well, what if we automated that and we're able to send 100 of them a day without fail? And one of the things I think people don't understand enough is the consistency of a task operation. Like, if you did that every single day, your business is going to scale without fail. That's where the huge opportunity is.
Dude, I love it. Yeah, scale is really hard, and scale is probably only fully possible with that. So I'm quite excited, and I'm quite excited about us potentially partnering up, because I've got tons of things that I'm seeking to automate. For example, I post a lot on LinkedIn. I'm seeking to do a book, and just scraping all my LinkedIn posts and classifying them and so forth, and then doing that on a recurrent basis and publishing a book every quarter, let's say. That's one thing. Then the contact adding to my campaigns, the writing of the emails for my clients, the podcast. I mean, so much work to do with podcast after the podcast, most specifically. To transcribe, the text from voice to text, to publish a blog out of it, to make like multiple small pieces of videos. I'd like to do that all on autopilot. There's so much value added. Tell us about like what you could do on the podcast, after podcast level.
Well, after the podcast level, right? Like once you've got the podcast, one of the things one of the things we're doing is literally we could take podcast segments and literally create that through ChatGTP to create headlines, to create bullet point lists, create tweets, to create all the social media posts that then you can promote those segments. You can then schedule that from a spreadsheet, for example, and like schedule those posts for every segment. You're not just dropping the link to the podcast, but here's why. One of the other things I was literally talking to somebody about was being able to take the podcast segments and then search for contextual keywords for what you're talking about in that podcast, and not just go on Twitter and go, hey, here's a podcast that answers that, right? Because people are like, I don't want to listen to a 50-minute podcast to find the answer where you talk about for 30 seconds about how it applies to me. Give me the answer now. So the thing is what we could do is we could join a conversation on Twitter automatically and then use the segment that we're talking about and share that and join the conversation, not as a spammer, but join it as offering value. It's just like, hey, did you hear of Charles' podcast the other day? They were talking about this marketing issue and here's how they solved it. So you provide the bullet point list of how they solved it. Like, and I go, and I think here's the podcast link, right? So now you're giving people a reason why to listen to the podcast, not just spamming the podcast.
Right. That was the vision behind one of the startups I called it Lean Machine, that I really wanted to launch. And even up to this day, it scrapes the full web and search for people that would be potentially interested in your service from keywords. But obviously, if AI is in the mix, it becomes pretty easy. The challenge back in the days was the intentionality of the words, like if there's a bunch of keywords in one sentence, doesn't necessarily mean that they are interested. But if they use these keywords and if the AI makes sense out of those keywords together and signals an intent on 10, then it becomes way easier. What do you think about that vision?
Yeah, well, I think that's great. And the other part of that is like now we can add sentiment analysis. So you can actually add like we may see that when we see 3 keywords together or 4 keywords together, we get the sentiment, maybe the wrong sentiment. And therefore it's the sentiment which is the trigger not to engage, which makes the intent wrong. So like we can actually layer linguistic analysis onto the analysis of the keywords, which is what a lot of people don't do. And as a result, you're now wasting outreach to people where it doesn't apply because the context doesn't fit. Where if you just applied a sentiment, like if I'm happy with my current supplier, it's a much harder conversation for you to have to move me to you. But if I make a post on Twitter, for example, where I'm frustrated with this service or with this problem, huge opportunity for you to engage me.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Wouldn't it be wonderful also to have like an AI generated buyer's profile, a database that's constantly updated? If this guy, he hasn't bought anything for years, he's broke, well, he's in the red, we won't prospect him ever, whatever job he occupies, whatever he's doing. If he has this other person, they're constantly buying, and they have a nice buyer profile, so the AI could associate demographics, psychographics, post analysis, and so forth to see if they're generally a good fit or not. And then yes, there would be some buying seasons in which they're more open. Lots of potential in that field, and that's like the machine all sales people have been dreaming about this full time, and apparently you're trying to build it.
Yeah, well, we've already built it, and now we've got the opportunity now to create the engagement. Like, because we started literally creating custom chatbots for people and personalized ChatGPT models for people, and now we've really expanded into the automation, which was the missing piece. And like I was talking to one couple the other day, one business owner who literally said, "I haven't taken a vacation without my laptop in 10 years." And what happens is they go somewhere and they will take their laptop with them. They end up working from the hotel doing the data entry tasks. And I was talking to a lot of people recently about this problem, and like they're saying, yeah, well, now I'm doing the tedious repetitive task in the evening when the kids go to sleep. So like the whole work from home thing
I'm
hasn't
guilty of
shifted
that
what we
too.
do.
by the way. I didn't used to, but like my excuse this year was like, oh, the economy is not doing super well, so it's like almost a mechanism to calm down your anxieties, right?
Yeah, and one of the things is like we need to. I think the companies that well, Dan Martell says it well, and it's the people who understand buying back their time, and you're not hiring people for the sake of getting a task done. You're hiring people to buy back your time and creating that freedom, which is why you got into the business in the first place. And so I'd highly recommend it. If you haven't checked out his book, go check that out, because it's a buy back your time is really impressive on what it can do and how it can help you change that mindset.
Yeah, I love Dan. I've started reading his book. Very cool guy. So for you and your startups, like what's next? What do you want to accomplish in the next 6 months?
Yeah, so we're just in the process of scaling our AI bots for people that we're making available. So obviously, scaling past 1,000 clients is really what our goal is.
Well, where can people find out more about you, Ben?
The easiest way to do it is you can just go to behaviorsales.com. You can hit me up on Twitter or on LinkedIn, and if you want to set up a time and have a chat, and I'm more than happy to give anyone an AI strategy they can literally implement today, because this is where most people struggle with, like, this whole thing of AI. What do I do? How do I do it? How do I apply it? And I'll show you literally in your business how you can apply an AI strategy to scale your business today.